Hey everyone, my name's Ercy and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to do the 10 random books tag. If that's something you want to see, then stick around. So this video idea was created by Niko over on Niko's book reviews. He's an awesome booktuber. I'll have him linked in the description box of this video. But pretty much the gist of this idea is to just select 10 random books from your collection and just talk about them. So what I wound up doing was counting all my books just off my bookshelves. I don't have them like recorded anywhere or anything. I just kind of counted them, got my number, which is 253, and I put those numbers in a random number generator, and then I just kind of counted off whatever numbers it was and grabbed those books. So I have 10 books right here next to me. They are very random and it's sort of reflective of my reading taste. I read all over the place. I like graphic novels, I like fantasy, I like sci-fi, I love romance. Not that much, but you know, I've got some romance in here. Magic realism. I'm just all over the place, which is fine, like to each their own, right? But let me not ramble too much. I have 10 books here and let's just start talking about the books. The first book I want to talk about is one that came out a few years ago, and he is a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and this is Junot Díaz's This Is How You Lose Her. And this is a short story collection centered around the theme of love. What I really like about Junot Díaz is that the characters that he uses for his books are from the Latin American community or the Hispanic community. That's why it makes this book so relatable to me. He uses a lot of language and slang that is used in Hispanic American culture. So even though I wasn't relating to the characters in some of these short stories in terms of their behavior and what they're doing, it was fun to read in terms of hearing the language, hearing the slang, and it just kind of throws me back to New York, like talking with my family and stuff. So it's a good time. But yeah, a lot of the short stories in here are just centered around this theme of love, maybe obsessive love, platonic love, affairs, like all different kinds of love, right? And it's just a good little book. So if you ever see this in your library or you want to pick it up, I would definitely suggest it because it's a good time. So yeah, This Is How You Lose Her by Junot Díaz, book number 1. The second book I haven't read yet, and this is a graphic novel, and it is The Killing Joke. It's a DC book written by Alan Moore, Brian Boland, and with an introduction from Tim Sale. And like I said, I haven't read this one. This specific edition is in Italian. That's why I can't read it. We picked this up in Florence while we were visiting. And we also have the English version of this book, but I can't read it because it's still sealed in the plastic and my husband refuses to take it off because he wants to keep it in nice condition. So it's one of those things I don't really understand too much, but it's comic book stuff, you know. This is supposed to be a really dark book according to my husband, so maybe one of these days I'll pick it up from the library and see what it's all about. I mean, I could read this version, it's in Italian. It just take me a really long time because my Italian is very poor. But yeah, it's got really good, like the illustrations are really cool, very bright, at the same time dark. But yeah, this is supposed to be a really dark and evil look at the Joker. So yeah, The Killing Joke. Switching gears, book number 3 is a romance. And that's Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I really like this book. It's a romantic comedy. I think I gave it 5 stars. It's a romance between the first son of the first female president of the United States and a prince of England. I think it's a hate to love. Yeah, it's a hate to love romance, and it's just a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. There are lots of scenes in here that just reminds me of when you're dating back in like my early 20s and stuff. It's just a good time. It's just a fun little book. It made me laugh out loud, and I really like this book a lot. If you're into romantic comedies, I would definitely suggest trying out this book because the hype is definitely real behind this one. I really liked it. So that's Red, White, and Royal Blue, book number 3. Let's go with a fantasy. The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. And I think this is a sort of dark fairy tale retelling. It's got a lot of fairy tale characters like the wolves, Rumpelstiltskin, a lot of these characters, but they're kind of turned and twisted. This is a really dark book, but very cool. I think it's still I think this is a young adult book, but it's definitely pretty dark. But from what I remember, I don't remember too much of it. I read this so long ago. I think back in 2007, I read this book. But I remember really liking it and having this be one of my favorite books. I even lent it out to someone and they never gave it back. And then I repurchased it. And then I think I lent it out again and that person didn't give it back. So I repurchased it again. So this is my 3rd copy of this book. I really liked it. I should reread this soon to see why I loved it so much back then, because I definitely don't remember that much about it. I just remember really liking it a lot. But yeah, this is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. Let's go with a nonfiction for book number 5, and that's A History of the World in 6 Classes by Tom Standage. And this is like I said, it's a nonfiction book describing how these different beverages have impacted history and society at any given point of time, right? So it talks about beer, wine, spirits, tea, coffee, and soda, particularly Coca-Cola, and sort of their impact on culture and stuff. So I wound up using this book back in grad school. I think I made 2 separate lesson plan units on using this book as a reference guide. So I think the first unit I wound up doing was having a lesson on each of the 6 classes or 6 beverages. And then I made a separate unit just focused on Coca-Cola and its impact on culture and society in the United States. But yeah, this is a really good resource in terms of using it for lessons and stuff in a social studies classroom. And that's what I did. So yeah, A History of the World in 6 Classes. Check it out if you're into history nonfiction books. The next book I want to talk about is The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, this is a part nonfiction, part fiction, part memoir. It's pretty much like a collection of essays highlighting the African American experience in the United States. If you hear some weird noises in the background, that's my dog rolling around on the floor. I feel like this book should be required reading in high school. I definitely see this being used a lot in college, in a university setting where you can kind of really deep dive into these books. But definitely, I feel like high schoolers should definitely acquaint themselves with this book when they're studying racism in America and stuff. So yeah, The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. The next book is one I haven't read yet, and that's Marvel 1602 by Neil Gaiman, Andy Kubert, and Richard Isanove. And pretty much the whole theme of this is Neil Gaiman just kind of throws a lot of Marvel characters back into the 1600s. So we have the X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and Daredevil. And yeah, they're just kind of thrown into the Queen Elizabeth's reign. I haven't read this yet. My husband really loves this graphic novel and has been telling me for years that I need to read this, and I keep saying I'm gonna read it, and I never do. So, but according to him, it's really good, hence why it's one of his favorites. So I think it's a really unique premise. I really like the idea of switching the timelines and seeing how the superheroes would adapt in a different kind of timeline or a different setting. So I think that'd be really interesting to read, and I'm glad for this tag to remind me about this book so that way I can pick it up sooner rather than later. So yeah, that's 1602 by Neil Gaiman. The next book I'm going to talk about is the illustrated A Brief History of Time, The Universe in a Nutshell by Stephen Hawking. Now, this specific edition of this book is the Barnes & Noble one, where you got all the foiling, all the prettiness and everything. You got a nice little ribbon and stuff. I used this book a lot in one of my courses for college. I believe it was The Evolution of the Earth and Universe, where we kind of talked about different, the way that our understanding of the universe and the Earth and its place in the universe has changed over time throughout history. And obviously Stephen Hawking is one of those really important figures in the world of physics, especially with his work surrounding black holes. It's really interesting. I feel like if you are going to dive into this book, I would definitely suggest getting the illustrated edition, because a lot of the stuff and a lot of the theories that he talks about, there are correlating diagrams to go along with it. That way you can understand it better. So that way you can kind of see it. That kind of helps me a lot whenever I'm diving into scientific theories and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a really beautiful edition of this book. Very good resource, and I really like it a lot. So there you go. The next book is really popular and I still haven't read it yet. It's a fantasy book, and it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I believe this girl is immortal and nobody can remember her until someone does. And I think that's a really interesting premise behind this book. I just keep putting other books in front of it, which is why I haven't read it yet. But I do want to read this soon. So yeah, that's this guy. The last book I'm going to talk about is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have to say his name slow because I get tongue-tied saying Gabriel. But this is a Nobel Prize winning author. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature for 100 Years of Solitude. I got my dog over here. He's just wanting some attention. But this is a romance novel with a lot of magic realism. Pretty much we have Florentino and Fermina. They fall in love. But Fermina winds up marrying like this wealthy doctor in order to please her parents and help elevate them in society and stuff. And throughout the marriage, Florentino winds up having a ton of affairs, over like 600, in order to help him try to get over Fermina, and he never does. So yeah, that is book number 10. So with that, I am concluding the 10 random books tag. Thanks and credit goes to Niko over on Niko's Book Reviews. Again, I'll have his channel linked in the description box of this video. I'm also going to tag 2 more people to do this. I'm going to tag Sheryl from Shelf Improvement. I really like her style of videos, and I think it'd be really fun to see how she does this tag. And I'm also going to tag Bryce from Shelf Centered. He is an awesome booktuber, very funny, very down to earth. He mostly talks about fantasy and sci-fi books in his videos, so I'll have links to both of them in the description of this video as well. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.